That's right. You're listening to another episode of the co-main event mixed martial arts podcast. I'm Chad Dundas. That's Ben Folks. We're both longtime MMA journalists. And for the last 14 years, we've been meeting here every week to break down all the action in the wild, weird, and occasionally wonderful world of mixed martial arts. Ben, UFC went back over to Baku, Azerbaijan over the weekend to lighten up the national gymnastics arena. Granddaddy of them all, Rafael Fiziev with a second round KO of Manuel Torres there in the main event. In the middleweight co-main, Shara Bullet emerges with the unanimous decision over Michel Pereira. Might end up talking a little bit about those fights. Not to pull back the curtain here for the kids listening at home, but right before we went on the air, we were talking about the Paramount Plus app.
Yeah.
And we both have different but not positive experiences with this app, right? You're telling me they're always trying to show you the fights in Spanish, the
Always.
Spanish language version.
I do not speak Spanish, Chad, and they just offer it up to me as it is the default setting. I have to go hunting for the English language version.
Let me ask you this. Are you using a VPN at all?
I don't believe so. Sometimes I've been known to use a VPN, but I don't believe I'm set to anywhere. Because anything else I watch on Paramount Plus, they don't try to show me Tulsa King in Spanish, Chad. They're not trying to show me El Landman, you know?
Greatest show in the history of television, El Landman.
So, yeah, I don't know what it is. I'll say this. I've been known to watch UFC fights on Paramount Plus in as many as 3 different modes, 3 different settings. Sometimes I'll watch it on the TV. I signed up for the Paramount Plus subscription through my Roku app, so sometimes I'll watch it on the Roku website, on my actual laptop computer, in the Paramount Plus sub channel of Roku. But I also have the Paramount Plus app on my phone for when I'm on the go, because I'm a go-getter. I'm out there. I'm leading a jet-setting lifestyle.
Rise and grind, baby.
Can't always plan to be in front of a TV when there's a UFC fight night event on. So I've been known to watch on the phone. I'll watch on the phone app. And for some reason, all these different modes of viewing I have, every once in a while, Paramount will just get it in its head that I want to watch the UFC exclusively in Spanish.
Yeah. I think it's El Land Hombre.
Okay, yeah.
Is that what it's called? Spanish language?
Presumably they also have a word for land, and neither one of us knows what it is.
With me, this thing wants to show me anything but the fights. Anything but the fights that I want to see. I just told you about all of the bullshit that I have to scroll down through. And this is on the UFC page, which you got to go hunting for, first of all. It brings up the opportunity for me to watch Zuffa boxing before it brings up the opportunity for me to watch the UFC. I have to scroll down through every category. They're trying to show me the UFC's greatest rivalries. Thank you. I was there. I saw them already. They want to show me the bloodiest brawls. They want to show me the Ultimate Fighter. They want to show me weird highlights. I have to scroll all the way down to the bottom. The very last fight-related topic is the actual fights from over the weekend that I want to watch, which you think would be higher. You think that would be a higher priority for the Paramount Plus streaming app than literally last place.
Yes, you would think that. And you know what? Even with these complaints, I still find Paramount Plus superior to ESPN Plus for reasons I will get into later in the show.
Oh, wow. That's a nice tease. I looked up hombre here online, and the actual definition, it says it's for a young man.
Okay, well, Landman is not that.
No, so that's that. Here's my segue. Wait till you hear this. What's the Spanish word for unk? Because that's what you need to call Landman, right?
Landman is out there on some serious unk shit.
Which brings us to our topic, at least here for the beginning of the show. We're going to have listener mail a little later on, and if you're a $20 patron of the show, you're going to hear, "Are you fucking kidding me?" and just saying stuff. But first, It's the year of the Unk in the UFC, or at least that has been proposed. Was this Mike Bad to the Bone who was the first one to proclaim it Year of the Unk?
Mike Bad to the Bone. I don't know if he was the first one to use the term "Year of the Unk," but he definitely held up the sort of the. He had put up a little graphic that showed the ages of various UFC champions and standouts, and how a lot of gentlemen of a certain age now, a lot of guys in their later 30s. I saw, I believe, Jed Meshew over there on MMA Fighting, also throwing around the term "Year of the Unk" after that, and somebody pointed out, I believe, that the UFC doesn't have right now a champion younger than 33 except Joshua Van.
Mm-hmm.
And so that it is interesting, especially it's interesting. I mentioned something about it when Mike Bond put it up, and I was just sort of like, huh, maybe we need to rethink what's old in the sport. Maybe training techniques have something to do with it. A bunch of people also came in there with some competing theories, though.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, well, I'm interested to hear your take on this, because here's two prominent competing theories that I've heard brought up a lot around this. Especially, you had Justin Gaethje come in there and win one. He adds one. Alexander Volkanovski as well. You could kind of argue like there's a couple guys where some things had to align for them to get there, but still, you got some older guys out there. And I went, it would make sense if people learned, hey, it's not 1997 anymore. We're not at shoot a box in 2002 beating each other's brains in. We're not in the military camp knocking each other out in racquetball courts every day. We get a little smarter about training. Maybe there's a little bit more to be said for career longevity then. Maybe that's what we're seeing. The competing theories that I heard brought up, one, maybe that with, notoriously poor pay in this sport, younger athletes aren't getting into it at the same rate that they used to. Maybe the younger generation is thinner in the ranks just because people go, this shit is a road to nowhere. I'm going to take my talents elsewhere. That's one possibility. Another is people went, so you're telling me that after the UFC cut ties with USADA and started its own drug testing regimen, that then some older fighters found a fountain of youth, eh? See, that noise you just made, that's about what went on in my brain when somebody
Yeah.
made this claim, where you went, that is a thing that makes you go, a little bit. Can't
Yeah.
help but go,
Yeah, because you can't say that's not true for any, degree of certainty. We got a question over on our, I think it was the live chat last week on the Patreon, that was basically like, is the UFC still even catching anybody for drug testing now that we split with USADA and we basically have our own in-house testing program? And we discovered that the answer to that question is not anybody you've ever heard of, for the most part. The UFC has its own drug testing website where you can go not only see the number of times that everybody is getting tested, but they've got a little news page where they basically self-report people who are getting suspensions for positive drug tests. And you scroll through there, you will quickly find out that you're not seeing a lot of capital G guys or girls popping positive for the PEDs, at least under this new UFC testing program. So you can't, with any degree of certainty, sit here and say it's not PEDs that are extending the prime of some of these UFC fighters. Let me say this. Let me ask you this. This is what I thought of while you were talking. Are we seeing right now all these? Are we seeing the fruits of the UFC's height in popularity between, say, 2005 and 2010? If you are a person who started training in MMA during the time that Tough really hit the highlights, the time that Lesnar was the champ, Ronda was there, you would got to be about 30, 35 years old, right?
Sure.
At this point, if you started training in your teens or 20s back in those days. So I wonder if what we're seeing is a bubble of people who started training when MMA was very, very popular. Now things have receded a bit. Uh, the UFC will never admit it, but we anecdotal evidence would suggest that the sport is not necessarily riding high the way it was 10 or 15 years ago. So are we seeing this bubble of people who got into the sport when it was really popular, and now that it's not as popular, you see fewer slightly younger people getting involved in the sport? And so that would be one. And I guess my other question would be, is the UFC flooding the market with Dana White Contender Series fighters instead of maybe, and this I don't know the answer to. I'm just talking shit right now. I'm doing the American jackass thing where I just speak confidently about something I know nothing about. Is the UFC flooding the market uh with inferior products, basically? Not to paint with a broad brush, but like incomplete fighters that we can get for cheap. Are we flooding the market in the UFC with those people, whereas 10 or 15 years ago we'd be going out on the open market and we'd be getting the hottest free agents who are probably today fighting in KSW or fighting somewhere in Russia, et cetera, et cetera? I don't know the answer.
It's an interesting possibility because I do feel my instinct on the people aren't young, the young folk are not doing MMA anymore.
Yeah.
That I feel like I could see you making that argument in North America, maybe that there's
Mm-hmm.
been a little bit of a fall off, but this is a more international sport now than it was 10, 15 years ago. You got fighters coming from all over the damn world. And so do still think, even if we regard this as maybe a bad value proposition for what you're getting paid, what you're sacrificing, what you're putting in, there do still seem to be a lot of fighters in other parts of the world who are still willing to make that trade.
Yeah.
And so, like, the argument though that we're flooding the market with Dana White Contender Series fighters, that is interesting to me because maybe what we're saying then is they intentionally want to get these young fighters. They want to get their hooks in them early when they can lock them into long-term, pretty cheap contracts. Dana White will go out there after having invited a 35-year-old fighter onto Dana White Contender Series and then say, I'm not looking for 35-year-old fighters. So there is like an age thing they have in mind for the Contender Series. It might be possible that you're getting some of these guys and they're getting into the UFC before they're ready, before
Mm-hmm.
they have had a chance to mature as a fighter,
Right.
and that you might be ruining some of them, or you might be at least
Well, you're
in
putting them in before they're ready. That's what I'm saying.
you're stymieing their development to some
Mm-hmm.
extent, maybe. That I could kind of see that. I also though I do think that we have to allow for the possibility that the 37-year-olds of today are just better than the 37-year-olds of 10 years ago, that they train smarter. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
Guys train a lot smarter, in part because of how stupid so much of MMA training was for so long, when we were doing this iron sharpens iron, everybody beating the shit out of each other constantly, and these super gyms kind of approach. So that longevity argument that we're taking better care of ourselves, I think that probably has to be part of it, because it's not like I look at this list of older fighters and go, these guys all suck. They just suck less than everybody else. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we have some good fighters here. And, it's Justin Gaethje wins this fight because Ilya Taporia is like, what, 28, 29 years old. So he had a bad night there. He made some mistakes, could have gone the other way. Some of this might be circumstance. Some of it might be, we could be sitting here 6 to 12 months from now and be like, shit, now there's nobody over 37, nobody over 35 wearing UFC gold. That could also be a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would also be interested in seeing some historical analysis of ranked fighters to find out, is this an anomaly, or if you go back 10 years, 15 years, are the top ranked fighters of that time already in their mid to late 30s? I don't know. But I mean, let's be honest. Knowing what we know about MMA and MMA fighters, one of the shortest distance between 2 points here would be readily available PEDs, right?
Okay.
Not to wildly speculate, but that's what we're doing. I guess.
Works
Like,
for Joe Rogan. He got a bunch of money, so let's see if we can wildly speculate ourselves into a couple hundred mil.
I mean, during the TRT era, right? You saw a lot of guys in their mid 30s get on some gender affirming care, and they're able to extend their careers. And, in the case of somebody like Vitor Belfort, be better than ever, kind
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
as you get in. Suddenly you're kicking everybody in the head and knocking them out, which is something that you had never, ever done before that. Uh, so I don't know, you can't, even if it's not true, you can't help but sit here and speculate that that could be what's going on, just because of the choice that the UFC consciously made to split with USADA and bring the testing program in house. I was thinking about this when we were talking about this earlier. You don't see Jeff Nowitzki very often anymore. Remember, Jeff
No.
Nowitzki used to be like, Jeff Nowitzki was in the news all the time back when we were actually catching people for PEDs. I assume he's still with the company, but like, you don't see or hear from the guy anymore.
Last time I recall hearing from him was when Derek Lewis was saying he was getting some of that good from the
Mm-hmm.
USCPI, and Jeff Nowitzki had to be like, "Hold on, what we're giving Derek is all above board and everything." But then it still left open the question that if I'm about to fight Derek, I'd be like, "Where's mine? What time are you guys sending mine by for me to get on some of that, whatever the good might be?"
Where are you giving out the peptides?
Yeah, can I get some peptides up in here? So I also think that there might be at least somewhat of an argument to be made that we've seen, especially in recent years, more guys who have come into the UFC as sort of a second act in combat sports. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we've long made the observation that fighting in a cage for money stripped to the waist doesn't tend to be anybody's first idea, or
Yeah.
doesn't tend to be too many people's first idea.
First
You know,
choice. Yeah.
there's a lot of people who were in another sport and then they found their way into this one way or another. I mean, and somebody like Carlos Ulberg is a good example where it's like, he had an MMA bout pretty early on, but then kind of went over there, was doing a lot in kickboxing. Alex Pereira, another guy where he had this whole kickboxing career, and then transitioned to MMA and great success in the UFC. And so maybe that's part of it too. Maybe it's like you get these guys from other sports, and maybe they didn't take quite as much mileage on the odometer as you would have if you were in MMA. We used to make this argument before that the one of the things that was both a help and a hindrance for the UFC, was nice for fans to some extent, is that if you were a guy climbing the lightweight ranks, in order to get your title shot, you'd have to win a bunch of fights in a row,
Mm-hmm.
and the last few of which at least would have to be against some really tough people. And so we saw a lot of people who got up there to that level, and then there wasn't a ton left in them just because of how hard it was, and how much damage and how much their bodies had to go through just to get to that point. You could kind of make the case that maybe Bilal Muhammad at welterweight was one of those guys where he had to have such a long win streak to get up there, get a title shot, got it, and then couldn't hold on to it for very long. And so like the argument that the UFC would make is that, hey, this is not boxing where everybody's racking up undefeated records with these very, very curated paths to a title. The best fight the best here. We're doing number one versus number two in the rankings to determine who gets the next title shot. And in a lot of ways, that was true. And so maybe you put those guys through such a meat grinder to get there at certain points in the UFC's history that you didn't exactly create an environment that lent itself to a bunch of 37, 38-year-old champions.
Yeah, maybe that could also be true. I don't know. But it is interesting, man. It's interesting that I believe Mike said the average age uh, in the top of the average age of ranked fighters across all weight classes is 33, and the average age of champions and top 5 contenders is 33. So that's higher than you would have thought, I guess. And
It,
great news for Rafael Fiziev, who just turned 33 in March.
yeah, see, I mean, Rafael Fiziev is a good example of something, because we were sitting around here before this event going like, you know what? On paper, would he lose 3 or 4? And you went, 2 of them were to Justin Gaethje. which
Hmm.
that don't
Pretty
look so
good.
bad right now at this moment, especially both of them being decisions, one of them being really, really close decision. Another one of them was a knee injury. Maybe he lost 4 or 5, I think, because he also had that one against Mauricio Hoofy. But then he comes out here, looks good in this fight. And if it turned out we're sitting around here 2 years from now and Rafael Fiziev at 35 is doing pretty well, it would kind of be in keeping with a lot of this trend that we're talking about.
He lost 3 in a row from 2023 to 2025. 2 of those were against Justin Gaethje. One was to Mateusz Gamrot, who is also very good, and that was the knee injury fight. Then he lost to Mauricio Hoofy in February of this year, but has wins over Ignacio Bahamondes and now Manuel Torres. I'll say, you know what else is true of Rafael Fiziev is that he showed up looking like he knows where they keep the weights.
Okay.
He looks like a 1920s strongman in his UFC picture, you know. So he's
It's
pumping iron.
he does from the neck down. He looks like a guy maybe prime of his life in late 20s maybe. From the neck up, you go, how is this dude only 33? That face has been through some stuff.
That's this face of a lifelong striker and combat sports coach turned fighter. That's that face.
That's the guy could stand to maybe work a little retinol into the skincare regimen in the evening. Just a thought. That's just a tip from me to you.
All right, like we always do about this time, let's do a little bit of listener mail.
Listener mail.
First piece of listener mail this week comes to us from Matthew, who writes in to say, I might be guilty of beating a dead horse, but Justin Gaethje's comments about his compensation from the UFC made his recent Joe Rogan Experience appearance were astounding. I was amazed that he credits his recently hired, quote, personal assistant for starting to advocate on his behalf, seemingly oblivious that the manager he's been paying for the last decade was supposed to be doing exactly that this whole time. Thanks again for the great show. I did not see Justin Gaethje on Joe Rogan because that's not part of my algorithm. But if he did say this, these comments are in keeping with stuff we frequently hear from other high level UFC fighters. We just heard it from Sean O'Malley last week when Eddie Hearn basically called him out for only getting paid $600,000 to fight at the White House, and Sean O'Malley, in classic Sean O'Malley fashion, turned it into a crummy advertisement for it's like one of those for like a hydration drink that he's trying to push. So not out of the question, although it is hilarious if it is indeed true that Justin Gaethje hired a personal assistant to essentially be his manager when he already has a manager.
This is I saw this just on Twitter where somebody said from the Joe Rogan interview where he said, luckily I have a personal assistant now, so she asks for things for me, but I've never been the guy that asks for things. Which I could see. Justin Gaethje is also the same guy who, let's not forget, when they were coming around and being like, we're going to give everybody these specially designed shorts for this event and you get to do it, have everything you want. And he was just like, kind of mostly plain black for me, thanks. Everybody else is doing like rad shit with theirs. And he was just like he kind of has it in his sense of self that, I'm the guy who just puts his nose to the grindstone, goes to work, doesn't ask for anything. Good that he's gotten to the point where he has a personal assistant willing to advocate for him. I will say, and I've said this for a while though, that the real benefit for the UFC to having a guy like Ali Abdelaziz be such a powerful manager in the sport is that if he manages so many of these top guys, he can just get in their ear and just basically be like, this is the way it is, man. This is the way it works. And get fighters to just accept that this is the only way it can work and only way it does work. And if he says like, hey, look, man, I also manage this guy, they're all getting similar deals to what you're getting. Nobody is getting anything that is wildly different from what they're giving you. This is just how it is. And that will work on fighters. They'll just be like, yeah, I guess that's how it does work on a lot of fighters, I should say. Not all of them, but a lot of them will just kind of go, all right, yeah, I guess that's how it is. And that's why the UFC would like to have him managing so many top guys, so that he can turn around and say stuff. I mean, this was a guy that was going to testify on their behalf in the antitrust case. Tells you whose side he's on here. That it's a great advantage to the UFC to have essentially a guy who is a broker for them in the role of fighter manager for so many top guys.
Yeah, I know we're expecting a an unfair amount of self awareness from fighters, but it is you would think that some of them would look at Ali Abdelaziz and say, "This guy's buying in bulk."
Well, some of them do. I mean, we just mentioned Sean Strickland. Every once in a while, Sean Strickland gets some stuff right. He's going to go a little far with it in the personal attack department and everything. Every time Ali Abdelaziz's name brought up, but that's not completely lost on everybody. Some people definitely seem to see that. We mentioned this, I think, on the Power Hour, but I was surprised this story about Ali Abdelaziz taking a swing at Eric Nixick backstage. I don't know, haven't heard any further reporting on that to hear how accurate that is. But God, I'd love to be there when he tries that with Eric Nixick's big ass,
Next question this week comes to us from Damien, who writes, this is praise for MMA outside the UFC. He says, AJ McKee and Liz Carmouche did the damn thing. Could we show some love to them? P.S. This show is one of the few things connecting me to MMA these days. Love what you guys put out into the world. Speaking of fighters that are getting up there in age and still seemingly extending their prime, Liz Carmouche went out there this weekend and got a win, and she's got to be in her 40s, right?
She's 42. 40 fucking 2, Chad. That is impresses me. Liz Carmouche still out here, still doing it. Just looking at her record, she started this in 2010. Has had quite a run all this time, and been just like really consistent. Had really found a home in Bellator and then PFL now, and probably in all ways is doing better than she would have if she had been in the UFC all this time. So, and AJ McKee is another example where I think he's one of those guys where you could very easily look at him and be like, man, if he had made the jump over to the UFC at a certain point during this, this upward trajectory of his, maybe he could have been one of the lucky few to be like a big time free agent acquisition, other than coming in on the Contender Series or the Ultimate Fighter or something, be somebody that they want to pay to go and get. And he seemed like he kind of made a conscious choice about that, to not do that. I don't know exactly how well it continues to pay off for him over there in PFL, but record wise, still doing pretty good. And it's the part of the equation you have to factor in there is his dad.
That's what I was just gonna say.
His dad lived through an entire MMA career, saw the way that it'll chew people up and spit them out and take advantage of you and exploit you every chance it gets. And so his dad seemed to drill into his head from day one, hey, if you're going to do this, let's be smart about it. And let's not let these promotions take advantage of you, because he had seen it for himself.
Yeah. 25-2 still for AJ McKee, who's now 31 years old, but putting up
the only losses, right? Like a decision loss to Patricio Pitbull back in 2022, and then a split decision loss to Paul Hughes. So those aren't bad losses to have on your record if you got to have some.
Next question this week comes to us from Aljamain HG, who writes, I know the two of you most definitely watched UFC Baku live. I think he's being sarcastic, man.
It was early in the morning.
So it's time to ask the question, keeping everyone up all since the event took place. Is Abu Smagomedov the best one-round MMA fighter since Sokoju?
Threw you off by including Sokoju's first name, didn't he?
Yeah, it's Remy, right? It's Remy Thierry Sokoju's the guy's name. Is that?
I believe it was Ramio, and like he's right, Ramio Thierry Sokuju.
Well,
He's Sokuju. There's only one
yeah,
Sokuju. We
yeah.
don't
I mean,
need to get caught up in this.
um, so Abu Magomedov, I don't know exactly how we how we measure this. I don't know how we measure who is the best one round fighter in the UFC, but he did look good during his one round over the weekend. Stepped in and landed a pretty sweet standing elbow, and then finished with strikes on the ground. So I got no complaints there.
Well, I mean, we all know what is being said about a fella when somebody comes in there and talks about him as the greatest one round fighter.
It is quite a caveat to make.
And to be fair, he does have wins past the first round. So he also, though, it's not as if we've never seen him in a fight where looks pretty good and then doesn't look so good.
Yeah.
So, like that can happen to a guy. I'll tell you what, when I watched this one, it was one of those where I'm like, man, you're doing good on the feet. The other guy is rocked, he's in trouble, and you're gonna sacrifice position to snatch up a guillotine. Classic
Yeah.
mistake, bro. And just as I'm thinking that, dude is tapping, and I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah.
This
Choked him unconscious, if I'm not
this
mistaken.
this might have been one of those situations where when you see somebody jump on a guillotine, it's because he knows this is my shit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a guillotine guy. I
Mm-hmm.
got this. As soon as I get this arm wrapped around your neck, you're not getting out of it. And it's just easy in that moment when you see somebody do it and you're just like, you don't have to do this, man. Keep them standing. It's going great for you. But some guys, they just know that's their move. He jumped on that thing and it was just like, I got it. Don't worry about it.
Next question this week comes to us from Isaac Spooner, who writes, I think this Daniil Donchenko guy has got to be one of my guys. Fun hairstyle, fun style, and a name begging for an MMA or for a CME style nickname. Danny Chinks? Question mark. But in this age where MMA fighters ask heads of state for personal favors, it was fun hearing names like Macron and Zelensky for a change. Stay frosty. I will say, Donchenko's out here with some noticeable Weirdsmobile energy, and I
Okay.
like it. I like it. He's got the braids dyed in the colors of the Ukrainian flag. He's out
Mhm.
here fighting like a wild man. You know what's amazing to me is when you have two professional fighters in a cage together, and one of them is far more terrifying than the other.
Yeah.
Only one of them is throwing punches that where you can tell that the other person, the other professional MMA cage fighter who's in there with them is like, wow, this guy punches hard.
Yeah.
This guy, like, he's really punching me hard. Like, that's impressive, and that's this guy for sure.
Yeah, there were some moments where you're seeing the difference in that fight and you're going like the other dude's face seems to be like, well, we're in a bit of a sticky wicket here.
Yeah. So
Not totally sure what we're gonna do, you know? And this you want to talk about somebody, young guy, might have a bright future in front of him, 24 years old,
mhm.
14-2, has only been a pro, according to Tapology, since 2019. So still could have a lot of future in front of him. We haven't seen him up against the cream of the crop exactly in the UFC. Alex Morono, kind of the most recognizable name that he's fought so far and beat. I didn't know, Chad, until they mentioned it on the broadcast that he's an Ultimate Fighter winner.
Yeah, that's one of those oh yeah kind of moments. Like
They're
they're still
still doing
doing
that.
that.
Yeah, who knew? They're
What does
still
it
doing it.
mean?
They're still churning out Ultimate Fighter winners. And yeah, you're just like, it used to be when the guy won the Ultimate Fighter, then when he started showing up and having real fights in the UFC every single time, people were like, okay, let's see what this guy can do. We got excited about him over the course of the reality show. And now it's just like an asterisk on a guy's record that, by the way, it's like saying like, one of your friends, he's a pretty smart guy. He tells you he won a spelling bee when he was in 8th grade. And you go, oh, okay, I didn't know that about you. Seems believable about you, but also just like an interesting tiny aspect of your personal lore, not necessarily a defining career achievement.
Yeah, no, I think that's I was and what does it mean now to be an Ultimate Fighter winner in, again, an era where we've basically replaced the Ultimate Fighter with Dana White's Contender Series because we realized we can get more people for cheaper if we do it this way. So if you're the Ultimate Fighter winner, not only does it not really have the same panache that it did when the Ultimate Fighter was super popular, but now you are just one of many people who was discovered on a reality show, a UFC centric reality show, at least at one time hosted by Dana White.
Well, but yet, as somebody clued us into pretty recently, the Ultimate Fighter is ongoing now, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's happening as we speak.
it's a current season with Daniel Cormier and Michael Bisping. Where does it air though? Because when I go and I'm looking right now again at the Paramount Plus
I can tell you one
offerings,
thing: Paramount Plus will give me the opportunity to watch that before it gives me the opportunity to watch actual fights.
I don't see it pop up anywhere. It doesn't seem like if they got it, they're not exactly trying to get me to. Oh no, okay. If I go and I search for it,
Well, you're not
then
scrolling down far enough, bud. You got to scroll
then
all the way down on Paramount Plus to find any of the things you want.
well, okay. But even when I okay, look, even when I go to it and I type in the Ultimate Fighter and it'll say new season, but then when I click on the page for the Ultimate Fighter, it wants to start me off with season 1, episode 1.
Well, it wants to know that to make sure that you understand what's happening when you get to season 32 or whatever. We don't want
A
you to just have no context. We don't want you to jump into the final season of Mad Men, right? Without seeing the rest of it. You got to watch the rest of The Sopranos before you watch the last season.
looking at Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture on either side of a much svelter Dana White who still hasn't decided to shave the head completely bald. You can see some
Mhm.
stubble on it. And just a much smaller version of himself, and in an ill-fitting suit. So it's a different
Yeah,
time.
yeah. You could probably divide the UFC into two eras, one being before Dana White got a personal stylist and one being after. Got the teeth fixed, started exclusively wearing tight white or tight black t-shirts and designer jeans. That was the first look. That's when you knew we were headed for the top, baby. When Dana White got a personal stylist. Do you think he even bothers to ever show up on the Ultimate Fighter now? Do you think he shows up like even for like the final fights before
I
we
mean, he's got to. He might as well. It's just happening like at the office, basically. You got to be
how
like,
often do you think he's in the office though,
let me
really?
swing by and see what they're doing on the Ultimate Fighter. I mean, it is crazy though that when I look it up here, I have to go search for it on the Paramount site. Then I see it says new season, but it does not make it easy for me to click and find that new season. It instead takes me just to like the general page. But I reiterate, this is how it should be. Nobody wants to watch The Ultimate Fighter right now. If you guys insist on continuing to do it, that's fine. Keep it in the back somewhere. Keep it behind the curtain, like old school porn at the video rental place. Make it so that if people want to watch The Ultimate Fighter, damn it, they gotta really want to watch it. Don't just leave it laying out where anybody can stumble into a new episode of The Ultimate Fighter.
This is one instance when you think they should make the content hard to find.
Yeah, because I don't, I like that we're doing it with two retired guys. We're not taking any fighters out of the rotation in order to do it. If you guys insist that there always be a season of The Ultimate Fighter on somewhere, somehow, you go ahead and do that, but do it in the least obtrusive way possible. I appreciate that. And then whoever wins it, if they end up being good 2 years after they win it, I'll find out about them.
I bet Dana White has a remote work agreement
With whom? Himself?
with the UFC. He's allowed to work from home if he wants to, a couple
He's
days a
allowed to
week.
work from the blackjack table if he wants to.
He'll show up to the office if the Nelk boys are coming by to do a tour of his office.
Yeah. If we need to show off some art, some very high dollar art that we were given as a questionable gift, then yeah, then he'll show up.
Actually, Dana White probably considers it a very important test of masculinity to be in the office every day. Right?
to make an appearance, to show up.
Nose to the grindstone. I've never taken a sick day. 40 years and I've never taken a sick day. That's probably Dana White. All right, next question this week comes to us from Sean, who writes, "What the fuck, BKFC? Joe went from one of the most thoughtful fighters in the sport to a punching bag. He retired 7 years ago. Why, oh, why is this happening now?" And of course, by Joe, he means Joe Lazon,
Yeah.
who you sent this to me as a sort of like a what the fuck kind of moment here in the sport that apparently Joe Lazon is going to fight in BKFC, which is it's a return that no one asked for and or was even thinking about, especially not to bare knuckle combat.
Yeah, I mean, I sent it to you with the same vibe that I saw the internet reacting to this news late last week, which was, "Oh no.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we do that? Why would anybody do? Why would Joe Lozon agree to do it? Why would BKFC want to do it?" Because it's like I agree with the tone of this question being he seemed like one of the smart guys, one of the guys who sort of got out in time and when he should have, and without sticking around and taking too much awful damage. He also was never really known as a stand there and brawl kind of guy. He was a guy
Yeah.
with good jujitsu. He was a little bit more of a crafty fighter who could get in some blood and guts wars when he needed to. But also, nobody was sitting around being like, you know, who would be great for BKFC?
Mm-hmm.
Joe Lozon.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was doing that. And this is where BKFC has to walk a fine line, I realize.
Yeah.
Because some of these fighters they go and get, and there's a similar kind of idea where we go, uh-oh, I'm not sure this is a great idea for you, man. But we are also going, I do want to see how it goes, though. I do
Mm-hmm.
want to check in on you and see that fight. And some of them have had a lot of success that way. Like Ben Rothwell showing up in BKFC and then, you know, having a lot of success even well into his 40s doing it. And Joe Lozon shows up, and maybe BKFC thought it'll be the same thing. People will be like, "Oh yeah, I remember Joe Lozon. Let's see how he'll do." And instead, people are going, "What are you doing? Why would you do this to this man? This is borderline abuse."
Yeah, which I feel like is a surprising misstep from BKFC. And again, I didn't have it on my bingo card that I'd be saying nice stuff about either Shara Bullet or BKFC on today's show, but like they've been pretty successful, if you want to say anything for them, at targeting seemingly the right people
Mm-hmm.
to bring into BKFC. It seems like they've been fairly successful at walking that tightrope that you talked about. And Joe Lozon is such a wild miss, right? Like, I can't believe there would be any person in the world, possibly including Joe Lozon himself, that thinks that this would be a good idea
Yeah.
or that thinks that this would be an exciting development for BKFC. I can't imagine thinking that that was the case. It seems like anyone would be able to forecast this reaction
Mm-hmm.
from the MMA community, which I feel like BKFC seems like they've been pretty good at that so far. And this one is just, it is wild. It is wildly wrong.
Yeah.
Next question this week comes to us from Drew from Texas, who writes, "I know in MMA we make up the rules as we go along and alter them when we find them inconvenient. But is not enough being made of Mark Goddard's decision to overrule the ringside doctor and allow the Topuria Gaethje fight to continue? I heard a report that there was another doctor there who found Topuria fit to continue, but surely the ref needs to err on the side of caution and default to the doctor who votes to stop it. As I watched it, I thought to myself, I've never seen this before outside of Kurt Angle coming out as a GM of Raw and spontaneously changing a match to last man standing. It seems completely insane, but I've only heard it briefly joked about in an ain't MMA great sort of way. Would it have been a bigger deal had the gone elbows controversy not happened? I know in MMA we make up the rules as we go along and then alter them when we find them convenient. No,
I think we
what happened here? We wrote it in twice.
yeah, maybe we were, you know how it goes when you go edit something, copy and paste, move
Yeah.
some stuff around. Sometimes you repeat yourself. Um, But I mean, it is. I understand people's reaction to this, especially because it's like people are so used to. We got it in our heads at some point. If a fighter ever utters the words "I can't see," that
Mhm.
it's like a hammer comes down instantly and ends that fight. And that's not necessarily the case. Also, refs, I think, especially with vision stuff, have been forced to develop their understanding a little further and little add a little more nuance because we've seen so many people poked in the eye, right? That they go and initially they might go, I can't see. And this was talked in that combat sports summit where it's just like, okay, maybe you can't give the guy 5 minutes the way you can for a groin kick, but you can buy him some time. And they would talk about various ways to buy the guy some time because maybe he can't see immediately after it happens, but the eye stuff can sometimes be a thing where give it a second and it'll clear up and it'll get a little better. And so, we walk over here, take our time to get the doctor, get the cut man to wipe him off, get a better look at it, all this kind of stuff, not in any hurry, so that we can buy him some time and find out if he's really can't see or if he just temporarily couldn't see. Now, the other thing is that people, we talk about a doctor's stoppage, but in most places, the doctor doesn't have that power.
Mhm.
The doctor can only recommend to the referee that he stop it. And we're used to seeing that, almost act as an automatic that if the doctor turns you and says, stop it, the referee is going to. It is a little bit jarring to have the doctor be like, no, you got to stop this one. And to then turn to that doctor and be like, okay, we appreciate your input. Thanks for coming in here. I'm going to need you to walk out of this cage and go sit down now.
Yeah. I thought it was a little bit amazing when it happened, when we watched it happen. I don't know if I'd ever seen that before. But again, it goes to show you like we do in fact have all these rules and all these regulations, as Drew from Texas points out. But at the same time, every single person involved is incentivized to have the fight keep going,
Yeah.
right? Every single person at least feels that pressure, and in some cases, stands to financially gain or lose from it if you are the fighter themselves. Uh, and I wonder, we were in the main event, right, at the White House, a fight that we've been talking about for a long time. And you can't say for sure. You'd like to say that this isn't the case, but I wonder if it crossed anyone's mind that like it would be a disaster, an absolute disaster to end this fight, because Ilya Tapuri was in rough shape, man. He was in rough shape this whole time. I think many people were surprised that he was allowed to continue into that last round that he fought. You know, rather than like surprised that like, he retired on the stool. I think everyone was like, probably shouldn't have been in there at all at that point. So I don't know. It was jarring to see it, and especially since Ilya Tapuria was so damn beat up. But at the same time, you got a title fight. You got one we've been talking about for a long time in one of the highest profile situations that you could have it. And certainly, maybe the profile where everyone maybe would have been more pissed off than any other time in the history of the UFC. Like,
Yeah.
how pissed off do you think everybody at the UFC would have been if that fight was a doctor stoppage at that point? Like,
Yeah.
you like to think that doesn't come into it, but at the same time, like these are human beings out there.
I would say to Drew from Texas, though, at least according to the way the rules are written, it doesn't seem like they violated the rules or made up the rules as you go along. Like, this is the kind of thing that the rules allow for. We just don't see it very often.
Next question this week comes to us from Dan Alexander, who writes, I was absolutely gutted to see cool Dusty P acting like a roided up teenager after too many visits to the gym and mom and dad's drinks cabinet. That tells you where Dan Alexander is from. He wrote mum. He truly was my great last hope. One that a high profile UFC male fighter could be a decent man, great father, and an antidote to the McGregors, Covingtons, and Joneses of the world. Hopefully, the video was the result of retirement blues, a lack of a North Star in his life, and perhaps seeing an old rival finally get his hands on the belt. Hopefully, this isn't CTE and true colors being shown. Anyway, I'm hoping that Dusty P gets the help he needs and that during the summer holidays, if either of you fly, that your travels through the airport are less eventful than Sir Dustin's. Love you both equally. Even when you get angry, call me a big boy and aggressively ask if I want to get some.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit last week on the live chat that it is, once you see the video, you're like, that's not great. That's pretty ugly stuff. Found it very telling that John Jones is like, hey, we've all been aggressive drunk assholes before. Like, why are you people making a big deal about it? I mean, I do still think Dustin Poirier still seems like one of the good dudes in this sport, one of the smarter level heads out there, and that you could have a bad day where you make some bad choices, things get out of hand, they get away from you, and he seems to have taken the lesson from it that he needs to do something about this. Especially, I could see how in that sort of aimless, newly retired life, maybe you don't always have a firm grip on yourself at first, and you maybe need to mess it up before you figure things out. So, I mean, I do want to point out he did apologize and fist bump the cop and tell him he did a good job by the end of it. So still Dusty P, noble in defeat, even handcuffed, being let out of the airport. It did make me wonder, Chad, what's the drunkest you ever got at the airport? What's the drunkest you've ever been about to get on a plane? Because I feel like I'm a guy who likes a few soda pops, and there
Yeah.
are just too many impediments to me being really drunk getting on a plane.
I've never been fight the cops drunk at an airport. That's for sure.
Yet.
I feel like the airport, especially in this day and age, is one of the places where you want to make sure that you're not too drunk, right? Like the airport is one of these places where you kind of want to mind your manners, so they don't throw you in federal prison or some shit. You end up vaping on the plane. You know what
Well,
I
I
mean?
mean, I was gonna say that's because it's expensive to drink at the airport.
That too. It's really
maybe
expensive.
this says something about our differing calculations in life. My main impediments were one, it's expensive to get drunk at the airport. Two, then you're going to be on the plane having to get up and go to the bathroom every 20
Mhm.
minutes, having to go pee, and you're just like, I don't want to live that life. I don't want to be going to the stand in line for the airport bathroom more than I want to be drunk at the airport. Because I understand, hey, especially if you had a flight that's delayed, you've been sitting around there for a while, you'd be like, I can kill some time, be going over here and drinking a couple Miller Lights, and then you realize that they're $12 each, and you think like, okay, well, we might just have one and call it a day then, just enough to get sleepy before I go on my plane. But I don't know exactly what was happening there. I did think like, I saw Wolf of Wall Street. Those guys managed to get on there absolutely shithoused and fly to Switzerland or some shit. Dustin Poirier, they wouldn't let him on the flight.
It's movie magic, Ben.
Okay.
It's the magic of movies. I mean, I don't want to make too much light of this. I thought that it was really bad, for lack of a better word, to see Dustin Poirier both trying to fight a cop, but also dropping N bombs and seemingly sort of hectoring the female gate attendants at the
Yeah.
airport. Like none of that was great. I do feel like I hope that this was an isolated occurrence and that he is able to kind of like learn from it and better himself from it, and that we don't see this happen again. I think Dustin Poirier is one of the people that that could learn and could like make this a one-time occurrence. I think you said last week that it's not exactly Conor McGregor. If this happened to Conor McGregor, his attitude is on to the next one,
Mm-hmm.
right? But for Dustin Poirier, this could be a meaningful rock bottom type experience, and you hope that's what it is. But time will tell. We get into the future, if there are more of these events with Dustin Poirier, then you kind of get into a really worrying situation. If this is the one isolated incident, then maybe you can chalk at least some of it up to having a bad day and a bad time in his life. So we'll see what happens. It's, you know what though? It's the rare internet video where the cop does a good job.
Does an amazing job, honestly.
Usually we're not seeing internet videos because the cop does a good job, right?
Yeah.
Usually it's the other way around. But this one, uh, First of all, the cop immediately recognizes that that's UFC fighter Dustin Poirier.
Which might be part of it. Honestly, that
Yeah.
might be part of why we took a de-escalation strategy right off the bat here, is because he walked in there right away and was just like, "Uh-oh, it's Dustin Poirier. Uh-oh, he's hitching up his pants.
Yep.
Let's see if we can talk this one out."
Yeah. So good job by him.
One thing I wanted to draw your attention to, Chad, before we close out today. We've heard these reports about Floyd Mayweather being in some money trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Saying that he's bouncing checks, owing some money here and there. Now there's a report saying that he is suing a former investment manager that he claims defrauded him out of $175 million. Now, Dana White was asked about this also at the post-fight press conference after the Zuffa boxing event. He says, "That's a tough one. I've talked to him about it, but I don't know enough about it. You hear all these different stories. I think you have to wait to see how this thing's going to play out in court for him." And notes, when somebody works as hard as he did and amasses the type of wealth that he had, and they lose it or it gets stolen or whatever the deal is, it's horrible. And it happens a lot in professional sports. So who knows? Anything is possible. Maybe we could do something and figure it out for him.
Oh boy, a lot to unpack there.
That is not the reaction I would have predicted Dana White would have if you asked him, "Hey, what do you think about Floyd Mayweather losing all his damn money?" I didn't think Dana White was being like, "Well, first things first, how can I help?" You know?
Okay, but what does he mean by that? Does
Maybe,
he mean let's put Floyd in a Zuffa boxing ring? Is that what he means?
maybe he can come in here and fight for 30 and 30, get him back on his feet.
If you told me that the business model for Zuffa boxing was to wait for old fighters to run out of money and then sign them to advantageous deals, that's exactly the response that I would expect. If Dana White's talking about helping Floyd out the bottom of his heart, well, that's one thing. But if he's like, how would you like to fight on Paramount Plus? That's a different deal.
It's also interesting, isn't it, though, for a guy like Floyd Mayweather to be like, "I'm in this situation because I was defrauded by an investor, like investment manager or something," and we can all go, "Okay, that part might be true. We have also, though, observed you
Mm-hmm.
over the last many years. We have gotten a hint of your spending habits just from afar. So I don't know if it was entirely being bamboozled and hoodwinked."
It's also somewhat telling that Dana White seems to have more empathy for a rich guy who lost his money than for a hardworking professional fighter who never had that kind of money to
Didn't get
begin
paid
with.
it to begin with. I
Yeah.
watched Floyd Mayweather throw money into the fucking air, Chad. So that might be part of how you got here. That's all I'm saying.
All right, that's going to do it this week for the Co-Main Event podcast. Thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate the support. We'd love it if you would join us over at the Patreon page, patreon.com/co-main event. We do have fun over there. Come on and join the team. I think you'll like it, man. That's the bottom line. We think you'll like it.
Might even love it.
All right, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. As for right now, we are done. We are through. We are out.
Feels like you want the rankings to be AI.
That's how they're advertised. That's how they're pitched. It's like I said, I'm reading from the press release. It says they use machine learning and statistical modeling along with the deep domain knowledge of the UFC. That's what it says in the press release.
Those words could mean anything. That's why they're in the press release.
IBM.com is telling me that machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence focused on algorithms that can learn the patterns of training data and subsequently make accurate inferences about new data.
IBM.com is where you went for that, huh?
It's the first thing that came up when I Googled machine learning to see what it was. I know you wouldn't want me to read from the AI summary.
Goddamn bet your ass I wouldn't want it.
Don't you think IBM.com seems like a verifiable source, like a trustable source about what is AI?
I'm going to say no, and I'm going to offer no evidence.
You're full of shit. That's why.
Yeah, full of shit on that one.